We're living through an invasion now. It's not an invasion, it's a border crisis. Thousands of illegal immigrants are crossing the border every day. How is this not an invasion? Why are you using such insensitive language? They're not illegal immigrants, they're dreamers. Whatever, more than 9 million dreamers have crossed into the country during this presidency. How is this not an invasion? Because they have to be armed in order for it to be an invasion. Invasion is a military action. Let me ask you something. Is insurrection a military action? Yes. You realize that January 6th was carried out by unarmed people? But those were white supremacists. They're dangerous, unlike dreamers of color walking into the country. The difference here is that I have no problem condemning things that are wrong. I will condemn the BLM riots, the so-called insurrection, as well as the illegal immigration going on. I'm not a racist because I don't care about the skin color of people breaking the law. I just want law and order to be upheld. I'm not racist either. I just hate white people. But you are white. Oh, I was assigned white at birth, but I identify as black. Okay, let's put it this way. From a security perspective, you think it's an acceptable situation that we let millions of people into this country without vetting? The FBI said that there is an increased risk of terror attacks because we simply don't know who is here. There could be terrorists living next door and you don't know. You are so misinformed. One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. Did you read Osama bin Laden's letter to America? Do you know that he was really fighting against white imperialism and colonialism? Just get educated before you say something. So you would be okay if that fight for freedom came to your neighborhood? You like the idea of jihad? The word jihad means different things to different people. Your fear is totally irrational. Muslims are peaceful people. Yes, for the most part. But even if 1% are radical Muslims, can you calculate 1% from 1.8 billion? You sound so Islamophobic now. And let me guess what you will say next. All the Latin American dreamers will end up being drug dealers and prostitutes, right? Not at all. Huge numbers of them are normal, decent people who are escaping persecution in places like Guatemala and Venezuela. And this is why we have asylum laws for people like that. But that's why every person entering this country should be vetted. Their stories should be verified. And if they qualify for asylum, they will get it, and then they become refugees, which is a legal status. How about everyone else? How about all these people living in poor economic conditions, their wives and children? Don't you have any empathy? We can give asylum to anyone who qualifies and does not present a security threat. But we cannot solve the world's problems. We will not solve world poverty and unemployment issues by letting the world come here. We'll just ruin this country. Do you think there should be a maximum limit on the number of people who come here? Of course not. How on earth is it possible to integrate millions of people into Western culture? What's Western culture? Are you serious? You don't know? Like our traditions and music, art, literature, philosophy. Oh, you mean some cultural artifacts that are based on white supremacy, racism, religious fundamentalism, and slave labor? What? I have a degree in gender studies. I know enough about Western culture. This is not going anywhere. How about all the drugs coming in and all the human trafficking happening at the border? So drugs should be legalized because the so-called war on drugs unfairly targets poor communities of color, and so much money will be saved in law enforcement. And cops are racist, so why should we spend so much money on them to begin with? Sounds like a great idea, especially for those who are already addicted. How about human trafficking? So obviously that's a problem, but you know that the Biden administration is trying to approve $14 billion to enhance border security, and it's the Republicans who are not letting the bill pass. So whose fault is it now? So if you invest more money into failed policies, they will magically work? Biden inherited a very well-managed border. He just ruined it by reversing Trump's policies. Trump's policies were racist and inhumane. And now we have a humanitarian disaster at the border. And it's the fault of the Republicans, right? It's not the fault of the person who opened the border to begin with, right? Okay, so how about the strain on the economy that so many illegal dreamers present? We will be just fine. The dreamers will actually contribute to the economy. Before they can provide anything, they will need services. They will need schools for their children. They will need healthcare services, food stamps, translators, and other things. It's a huge strain on taxpayers. They will do all kinds of jobs that many native-born Americans don't want to do. Are you implying that it's the Latin American people who come here who should be doing the dirty jobs? No, of course not. Are you accusing me of racism? But they do work and pay taxes. I'm not denying that. Of course, many of them work. This is why we should admit some people. But admission means that people are handled by authorities and vetted first, and not just allowed to freely walk across the border. You know what borders are? Borders are the result of colonial conquests and Western imperialism. Borders represent violence and aggression against the native people. There shouldn't be any borders. If you come here illegally, you are not a dreamer. You are a criminal because you just broke the law. What does it say about us as a country if we openly allow that? The demographic coming into this country is better than the one inside. They are the oppressed people of color. Being an immigrant or refugee is fine. I'm a first-generation immigrant, but I came here legally. You guys deserve to be replaced.